Story 1. A girl I had just started dating had front row tickets to the Michael Jackson concert in Dallas, the one where Eddie Van Halen showed up to play the Beat It guitar solo live. I did not trust how she acquired the tickets. Story 2. James Brown. It was the mid-1990s, so he was not at his peak by any means. I told my friends I did not have the money. Turned out to be a killer show, and I could have afforded it one way or another. Story 3. I had tickets to see Nirvana in Montreal, one of the last shows they ever played. Something came up, and my roommate and I did not feel like driving the 2 hours to the show, so we did not go. Story 4. Skipping the Arctic Monkeys when they came to town because I thought I would catch them next time. Still waiting on that next time. Story 5. Prince Purple Rain Tour. I had a ticket but asked off for the wrong day at work, and they wouldn't let me switch it. I put my part-time job at Burger King ahead of seeing Prince when I had the chance, and I'll never get over it. Story 6. I was born well after Elvis Presley's last show at Market Square Arena in Indianapolis in 1977, so it was out of my control. Story 7. My parents won very important person tickets on the radio for Christina Aguilera, but I was in the phase of being an independent preteen and did not want to spend the night with my parents. I missed an iconic show. Story 8. Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers at the Cow Palace on New Year's Eve. I have seen all three bands individually, but that must have been one incredible show. Story 9. When I was in college, Billy Joel and Elton John came to play a concert on campus. I went to Syracuse, so they played in the Dome. I like both but wouldn't say I am a giant fan of either. However, I do kick myself every time I think about it because I could say that I saw Billy Joel and Elton John live in concert. It might have been just one or the other of them. I am suddenly fuzzy on that since they have both played there together and separately. Story 10. For me, it is Ozzy Osbourne's last show before his untimely death. Back to the beginning. I did not have enough money for airfare across the Atlantic and to get a ticket. The same applies to Meshuggah during their 2025 tour. Story 11. Almost 25 years ago, I had a chance to go to an Underworld concert. They were hugely important to me, a very big formative part of my music tastes that continues to this day. I chickened out because I was socially awkward, and then decades passed. Finally, they were touring my country again, and this time I wasn't gonna mess up. I bought tickets, booked a flight and hotel, and committed. This time I wasn't going to miss it. To miss the concert scheduled for May 2020. As it turns out, I did not go to that concert, nor did anyone else for obvious reasons. Regrets. Story 12. Tons in the 1980s, The Police, Journey, Prince, The Rolling Stones, Tom Petty, Van Halen, all the big stadium tours. If only I had known. Story 13. Queen. My friend went every year, and I finally decided to go with him next time, just before Freddie died. Story 14. My intoxicated friend had money for me and two others to go to the Metallica concert with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra but got intoxicated the night before and overslept to go get in line at the warehouse and get tickets while we were all working an early shift. I am still upset with you for that, Craig. Story 15. I had always wanted to see the Beastie Boys. I had tickets to a show at the Hollywood Bowl, but it was canceled a few weeks beforehand because Adam was diagnosed with cancer. The second show I missed was INXS performing at Wembley in England. I was visiting family in England at that time. I was a big fan, but I was 14 years old, and my parents did not let me go. Michael Hutchence passed away soon after. Story 16. Not seeing the Foo Fighters before Taylor died. I did see them last year though, so it is fine. Another minor regret because I know the traffic was absolutely horrible and I am glad I did not deal with it. But there was a Pierce the Veil show with Sleeping with Sirens that was close enough I could have gone to. However, I am going to another Pierce the Veil show in October in my state, which I thought Sleeping with Sirens would be at. But they are not, so I am a little bummed about missing them playing together. It is not worth the kind of traffic I heard about and saw on social media. Story 17. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young performed the night President Richard Nixon resigned. My sister offered me her extra ticket. I thought it was more important to watch the resignation on television. It turned out to be quite a celebration at the concert, so I missed a unique moment in a unique setting. Story 18. Easiest question ever. Blur at Caddy's in Cincinnati, 1997. Had no idea that they would never be back again. They were at such a small venue too. I had a horrible cold and hated missing that show, but if I had known I would never get to see them again, I would have gone. Story 19, Metallica, Michael Jackson, Prince, Queen, the Rolling Stones, and many more. I can still try to see some of them, so there is that. Story 20, Damage Plan was coming through town. I enjoyed them, but I was more of a Pantera fan. I'll catch them next time, I said. Dimebag Darrell was shot a few months later. I am fortunate to have seen the 1990s lineup of Pantera close to a dozen times before they broke up. But this one stung. I am seeing Pantera next week though. They are a great tribute band. Story 21. Back in 1978, my friends were going to see the Sex Pistols. I did not go because I thought they were bad. They were known for spitting on their fans. I was into new wave, not punk. I still do not like them that much, but it would have been an experience. Story 22. I almost went to Christopher Cornell's final performance in Michigan with my sister. We decided against it because Soundgarden was playing Rock on the Range the following week, and we had tickets for that already. I definitely regret not going. Story 23. Guns N' Roses toured with Metallica in 1992. I was 11 years old and begged my mother to let me go. I said, "Please, Mom. Either they are going to break up or start to decline." She did not give in, and my prophecies came to fruition. Story 24. I went, but I regret not getting my father a ticket and bringing him with me to see the Fleetwood Mac classic lineup when they toured in 2014. My father wouldn't spend that kind of money on himself, but he encouraged me to go. He seemed sad when I got home and showed him the low-quality videos I took. He passed away a year later. Story 25. Recently, I had a ticket to see Nine Inch Nails. By the time the concert came, I was burnt out from work and could not handle the 2-hour drive to the show. I was not able to sell the ticket either. I also regret not seeing Metallica in 2019. Story 26. When I was a freshman in high school, I wanted to see Lil Peep so badly on his first big tour. I couldn't make it for some reason, most likely because I had no money and no friends to go with. He died less than a week after playing in my city. Also, during my senior year or maybe the year after, I had been obsessed with Brockhampton for quite some time and had missed a few tours. My mom got my siblings and me tickets to their tour in March. I was excited to finally see them. Then they broke up and canceled the entire tour. This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Story 27. Back in the 1980s, we went to see Night Ranger at the Illinois State Fairgrounds. We ran late and missed the opening act. Night Ranger put on a good show. The opening act was Weird Al Yankovic. I have not had the opportunity to see him since. Story 28. My wife suggested a Dave Brubeck concert. I was not eager to fly to New York City for just a concert and thought we would have time to see him later. He died a few months after that. Now, if my wife suggests a concert, I am all in. Story 29. Was supposed to see XXXTentacion, Ski Mask the Slump God, and Danny Towers on the first tour for XXXTentacion. Say what you want about him as a person and his music, but I was a fan before the hype, and he was extremely talented. The friend I was supposed to go with got cold feet. After finally convincing him to go 2 hours before doors opened, I checked Instagram and saw they had just announced that this show and the rest of the tour had been canceled because his cousin in Florida was shot. Many people were upset, having driven more than 5 hours to the venue and waiting outside when they found out. I never had a chance to see him again, and he was shot and killed a year later. I still have the ticket stubs. That tour was also notorious for people saying they were going to wait outside the venue or storm the stage to try fighting XXXTentacion. He had already been attacked multiple times, and I personally saw posts of people saying they were going to try to jump him outside. I have always thought that was the real reason they canceled the tour. Story 30. Tragically hip, man. Living in Ontario, it was always like, oh yeah, they're at another festival. Oh, they're headlining another 20-date tour through the province. I'll see them next week. I have all the records, and every fifth song on the radio is theirs anyway. There's always time. And then suddenly there wasn't. In 25 years of concert going and countless dollars spent on tickets, The hit never got to be one of them, and I will regret it eternally because nobody and nothing will ever replace the legendary performer that is Gord Downie. Story 31, Rage Against the Machine. I had the ticket, but they canceled it due to the vocalist's injury. They might never perform live again. Story 32. Dr. John came to my city in Canada, and there were tickets still available, but I was so exhausted. Not long after that, he passed away. Story 33. The South Park 25th Anniversary Concert. South Park has been a part of my life since I was a kid. I did not go to take my long-term girlfriend at the time to Lollapalooza. She ended up dumping me a month later. They eventually uploaded the concert to HBO Max, and it hurt my soul to see what I missed out on to go see Machine Gun Kelly for a girl that does not even matter anymore. Story 34. The final performance Linkin Park played before Chester Bennington died was less than 1 hour away from where I live. I couldn't go for financial reasons. If I had known it was going to be his last ever show, I would have saved my money to attend it. Story 35. Carly Rae Jepsen and Wu-Tang Clan. Crossing my fingers that, in the future, I will get a chance. Also SZA, Kendrick Lamar, Modest Mouse, and Billie Eilish. Story 36. Could not go by choice. Blink-182 and Linkin Park were supposed to play together in New York City back in 2016. Even bought the meet and greet package with Blink-182. But then Chester committed suicide about a week before the concert was supposed to happen. Story 37. Prince's last show in Toronto. I had every intention of lining up for tickets but figured I would catch him on the next tour. He died a few weeks later. I will regret that for the rest of my life. Story 38. 1995 The Division Bell by Pink Floyd. I skipped it because it was $250, which I didn't have as a senior in high school. I still regret it to this day. Story 39. The early days of The Weeknd. I never got around to seeing him until his recent tour. I have been listening to him since I first discovered him through his feature on Drake's Crew Love. Story 40. My sister-in-law offered me a free ticket to see Post Malone at his Chicago show earlier this summer. However, it was a school night, and I am too tired these days to do that sort of thing. I regret it badly. Story 41. Keen, when I was in early college, had no one to go with and was nervous to go alone. Tickets were $20 in town. I have never had that opportunity again. Big regret. I kept that in mind when I forced myself to go to Queen alone years later. It was awkward being solo sitting between two large groups, but it was so worth it. Story 42. Stevie Ray Vaughan. I had tickets to one of his last concerts, but something came up and I chose to skip it, thinking I would catch him later. Big mistake. Story 43. Page and Plant played 2 shows at the Gorge. One year I was in China, another I was in New York City. I should have made the trip. Story 44. I didn't get tickets for Lauryn Hill at Red Rocks because she never shows up. So what's the point? She showed up. Everyone I know was there. I was the only one who sat it out. Story 45. Wu-Tang played my city last week. I could not afford it. I am trying not to think about it. Can I get a sad? Story 46. I had the opportunity to see Tear and Ailstorm at Rock City in 2009. They only had one album out at the time, and it was before they got silly. I like their silly era. It's great, but I would have loved to see their serious era. I attended Bloodstock Indoor from 2005 onwards and many of the outdoor events. It was my own prejudice resulting from nu metal that caused me to avoid it. Metal in the 1990s and early 2000s was represented by nu metal bands. I discovered real metal in 2003, but the current scene was dominated by rap metal bands, and I hated it. I still do. I didn't go to Bloodstock because it was a metal festival and I felt it was just going to have rap metal bands. Now, looking back, I would have loved it, and it would not have taken until 2007 to start being comfortable checking out new bands rather than listening to almost nothing past about 1990. These days I am more open, but the 1990s was a dark time for music that left me wary of anything new, as it had all turned out poorly. Story 47. Warped Tour 2008. Gym Class Heroes, Cobra Starship, 30H3, Say Anything, Real Big Fish, A Day to Remember, just a great lineup. The 2006 lineup included Thursday, Scary Kids Scaring Kids, Motion City Soundtrack, All Time Low, Bullet for My Valentine, and Hello Goodbye, many bands I liked. Both times, I had never been to a concert before and was nervous to go alone, so I did not go. I regret it. Story 48. Waylon Jennings was playing about 15 minutes from my home. In those days, I was busy with my children and other responsibilities and could not get to the show. Story 49. Gosh, the summer of 1994. I missed all the concerts I wanted to see. I just couldn't get tickets. Pink Floyd, Pearl Jam, and Guns N' Roses with Metallica, and Faith No More opening for them. Story 50. Nothing too major, but Recognize played a local show for the 10-year anniversary of one of his albums. He was around the corner, and I found out the day after. I also found out a day later that Alien Ant Farm was local. I am trying to convince someone to let me take my autistic son to see Iron Maiden in a few weeks. His sensory issues mean it's likely he will tap out, and we will miss seeing Iron Maiden entirely, which would be a huge waste of money, and he will regret it later in life. It would mean giving up on seeing a band he loves as his first major concert. Also, on the opposite of this post, my first time going to see live music was at Warped Tour. They had Rise Against on the set list. I was on the West Coast and bought tickets specifically to see Rise Against. They did not perform past Denver, I think. So I hope they regret not going to see me. Story 51. I had a ticket to see Warren Zevon at a small local club. A few years before he passed away, around 1999, I think he played at a club in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I had a ticket, got wasted, and missed it. My one concert regret. Story 52. My friends used to go to the Glastonbury Festival in the early to mid-1980s, and I should have gone. I missed out on the Elephant Fair as well. Story 53. Coachella 2023 with Bad Bunny and Blackpink headlining. Their concert tickets alone are already more expensive than the Coachella tickets for the weekend. Story 54. Alive 2007. I was 10 years old, so a little young to fly to America to watch a Daft Punk concert, but I would pay a ridiculous amount of money to see them perform live. Story 55. Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden. I was going to see him this summer, but with his brain disorder and new documentary, prices will be very high if he ever returns. Story 56. Paramore performed at the Belasco in Los Angeles a few years ago. They will probably never play in a venue that small again. Story 57. Just the two raves to be fair. Resurrection the event in Edinburgh and Fantasia the Big Bang at the SEC Glasgow had the chance and missed it. Story 58. Soundgarden. I gave my ticket to a friend. Chris Cornell was dead a few weeks later. It was Game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Story 59. AC/DC. I missed my chance. They toured 5 times in my lifetime. 1995 to 96, 2001, 2009, 2015, and 2025. Of those, I could have gone starting in 2009 at age 13. In 2015, I was in college. In 2025, I did not have anyone to go with. Ozzy's sad face. The Beach Boys 2012 reunion. I knew it was happening, but by the time I started paying attention, the Chicago date had passed. I was a sophomore in high school, and the Chicago date was in late May. I was not paying attention until school got out in early June. Instead, I saw the Beach Boys in pieces. Mike's and Bruce's legal group in August 2018. Brian with Al Jardine in November 2018. Saw Al solo in 2022 and will again in 2025. Story 60. Motorhead in Amsterdam. I had seen them a couple of times. A bunch of my friends went and I skipped that one. The concert was great, and afterwards my friends went for drinks in a bar. Eventually, Lemmy showed up at the bar too, and they had a great chat with him. Story 61. Blind Melon performed at a local bar in Birmingham. None of my friends wanted to go, and I was too afraid to go by myself. Shannon died a few months later. Story 62. I didn't know who they were in 1992, but my friend knew, so he saw Nirvana in Oslo in 1992. He told me about it, and I had no idea who they were. It was a good concert, apparently. I don't have any regrets, though. I really enjoyed the 90s. I saw a lot of the classic bands in their prime, such as Oasis in 1997, Beastie Boys, Radiohead, Prodigy, and Offspring. I was really into the drum and bass scene in London in the later years of the 90s. Story 63. I do not regret it because I went, but I had 4 tickets to the final Soundgarden show in Detroit before Chris committed suicide. Only 2 of my friends wanted to go, so the 4th ticket went to waste. It is amazing how many people the next day talked about how much they loved Soundgarden but would not go to a free show the day before. Story 64. Suicidal tendencies in the mid-1990s. They opened for Queensryche, and I did not want to see Queensryche. Story 65. I saw Black Sabbath with all original members in 2001. It was great, but I wish I had gone to see Ozzy in earlier years. Story 66. My friends went to an outdoor festival in the 1980s featuring Queen. I did not want to go because I felt I did not know their music well enough. And Bruce Springsteen in Frankfurt, where he played for 4 hours. But what can you do as a female teenager relying on public transportation? Story 67. Prince performed a residency at the Forum. My terrible ex-boyfriend and I got into a fight, so I decided I didn't want to go. I planned to see Prince the next time he was in town. Story 68. The Cramps Halloween show in Los Angeles. Didn't want to pay Ticketmaster fees and drove by the venue many times on the trip, but were always running late. Show sold out. And then the Cramps were no more. Story 69. When I was a freshman in college, either fall 2004 or spring 2005, Taking Back Sunday and Jimmy Eat World played at my campus. My sister drove in to see the show with me. By the time she arrived and we got to the venue and through the lines, we ended up missing the opener. We did not really care because it was someone we had never heard of before. Later, we both learned about the format and fell in love with them, shortly before they broke up. It is now nearly 21 years since that Taking Back Sunday and Jimmy Eat World show, and we still both regret missing the format as the opening act. They planned a few shows in 2020 which were canceled due to COVID-19. They have a couple of shows coming up this fall for real this time, but nothing convenient enough for me to make it to. Story 70. Children of Bodom. Every time I planned to see them, something got in the way. Either I had to work, could not afford the tickets, or got ill. Then it was 2019 and it was too late. Story 71. Several shifts were missed in college because I had work and could not find someone to cover for me. It was the adult and responsible thing to do. However, in hindsight, I should have just called in sick. Some things just do not get a do-over. Story 72. Jerry Williams, when he died, I just broke down. I played his music all day. Rest in peace, rock and roll king of Sweden. Story 73. When we were young at Fest in 2022, I was out in the area doing training for a job. The place they had me at was horrible, and I seriously considered skipping work and going. I didn't, and I was responsible and went to work, but I absolutely should have skipped and gone. Story 74. I finally was in a place financially and had plenty of notice for a Cramps show. I was excited because seeing them perform live had always been on my short list. I ended up not going for a few different reasons and figured I would catch them on the next tour. Lux died the following year. Story 75. I decided to be responsible and go to work instead. I figured I would have another chance soon, but then there was the pandemic. Story 76. Tragically hit on their final tour. I have seen them 3 times and would have loved to attend their last performance. Story 77. I meant to see the Polish metal band Hate in the Netherlands around 2010 or 2011. One of the band members died 2 days after the gig. Story 78. I was living in Denver, preparing to go back to Ohio when the Red Rock schedule came out. I loved U2 back then and almost adjusted my plans to stay for them, but I decided not to. That concert became Under a Blood Red Sky, one of my few life regrets. Story 79. The first time Opeth played Black Rose Immortal in many years was in Copenhagen 2022. I was broke and burnt out. Even more niche, Paradise Lost performed with Sinistro in Budapest in 2018. I have seen Paradise Lost several times since, but Sinistro has changed singers. They are still good, but it is not the same. Story 80. Oh my gosh, so many. My friends and I had free tickets to see Sting in 1988, but nobody could or would drive us to the venue, and we lived in a rural area with no public transit. I skipped Glastonbury in 1995 and missed The Cure. I was invited to Coachella in 2003 but felt weird going because I didn't know anyone in the group except one coworker and missed the Beastie Boys. I did not buy tickets to see Depeche Mode, David Bowie, and Porno for Pyros at the Santa Barbara Bowl. I later heard the shows from my house and felt sick as all three bands played deep tracks instead of just their latest albums. The whole set for Porno for Pyros was basically the first two Jane's Addiction albums, since Dave Navarro was with them. The Santa Barbara Bowl is one of the best venues to see a show. I did get to see both The Cure and the Beastie Boys there, so it all worked out in the end. An even worse decision was deciding not to see Nirvana at the University of California Santa Barbara University Center for $5 in 1991 because I'd only heard Smells Like Teen Spirit on KROQ and wasn't sure I'd like any of their other songs. I did get to see Green Day for $8 in 1994, but it's not the same, not even close. I'm reading everyone's comments and it's triggering more regrets. Soundgarden at the Belly Up Tavern in San Diego in the mid-1990s. Sublime in 1994. My friend forgot her ID and we couldn't get in. No Doubt and Bush doubleheader at Mission Bay in San Diego. We parked in a lot across from the venue where we could hear the music and see half of the stage, so that wasn't a total miss. I was too young but remember desperately wanting to see Duran Duran in 1985 and The Cure in 1986. Story 81. I regret being as intoxicated as I was at the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Festival, most music festivals and concerts. Memories are blurry at best. Story 82. The Jacksons before Michael left. Oscar Peterson, jazz pianist, was an amazing legend. He played nearby a couple of years before he passed away. Story 83. When I lived in Los Angeles, my friends invited me to a Bon Iver sunrise concert at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. The concert started around 4 or 5 in the morning, and the set synced up with the rising sun. For some reason, I declined. It could have been money or the fact that I was depressed and staying at home a lot. The early start was not a factor, as I was staying up all night those days anyway. I regret not going. My friends said they woke up very early, went to the concert, and then napped when they got back home. Because of that, he said, it was like a dream. It still bothers me to this day. This was when the band was lesser known. For Emma, Forever Ago, had just been released in the late 2000s. Story 84. Motorhead, Southampton Guildhall back in 2006 and 2007. I had the flu. I should have piled up and sweated it out while holding a black bucket for my vomit. Story 85. I had a chance to see one of my favorite acts of all time, Morphine, just 3 hours away from me. Despite my intense fandom for them, I said to myself, next time. I still don't know why. Mark Sandman died on stage about 12 shows later, and I have never forgiven myself. I have literally kicked myself many times for being so stupid. The upside is that I went way overboard in catching every show I could for several years to compensate. I ended up seeing a lot of cool stuff I would have otherwise missed. Story 86. The only concert I ever attended was the Best of Both Worlds tour at Madison Square Garden. During the concert, R. Kelly became upset and accused someone in the crowd of pointing a gun at him while he was on stage. He then left and did not finish his part of the performance. We were all thinking, is this real? Until Jay-Z came out and said, give me a minute, New York, I got you. He then proceeded to deliver an incredible show. Story 87. The big one for me is the Glastonbury Festival 2008. A combination of the last few years having terrible muddy weather and some controversy over Jay-Z being one of the headliners, they had all been rock acts up to then, meant that for once it did not sell out and you could easily buy tickets right up until the festival, even in music stores. I was 19 and tempted, but I did not have my own tent or anyone to go with, so I decided to skip it and attend another year. I missed seeing Amy Winehouse, Leonard Cohen, and more. By the time I finally got myself together to go a few years later, the festival started selling out in minutes on the first day tickets went on sale. I have still not been and, unless a miracle happens, might never be able to. Story 88. I was supposed to go see Mac Miller, my favorite artist, for the first time. The person I was seeing bought the tickets but was holding them over my head and behaving poorly, so I broke it off. Mac Miller died not long after that, and it was one of his last shows. I forever lost that opportunity. Story 89. I really should have found someone to take my shift so I could go see Daft Punk during their Alive tour. Also, after a few missed opportunities, I had tickets to see Radiohead in 2012, but the stage collapsed during setup and one of their longtime crew members died, so it was cancelled. Story 90. 9-inch nails a few weeks ago in Manchester due to having a prolapsed disc at lumbar vertebrae 5 to sacral vertebra 1. I had a standing ticket. Gutted. I did manage just to see Tyler the Creator the week before, mainly because we were in the seated area. Fingers crossed I am okay for late August as I have tickets to see Queens of the Stone Age and Viagra Boys in Sheffield. I had to sell my tickets for Viagra Boys earlier this year due to a clash with work. If I have to go on crutches, I will be there with my crutches. Story 91. Nirvana in 1990 when they were touring for Bleach. I was just lazy and wanted to stay home. I saw Kurt Cobain play solo with Mudhoney, Pavement, and Sonic Youth in 1992, but never saw Nirvana. Story 92. Honestly, Taylor Swift. I don't think there will be another concert like hers in my lifetime. It would have been cool to tell my kids and grandparents about it. I really do believe it was that big of a deal. Story 93. ELO. They just had their farewell tour, and if anything, they don't have nearly as many anthem-type songs as Queen. Story 94. The Eras Tour. I am vision impaired and would not have been able to afford anything close to the stage where I could actually see, so I did not bother spending the time and money on tickets. Now I really wish I had just gone anyway. Story 95. I could have gone to the California Jam and United States Festival, but I did not because I did not want to be among that many people. Story 96. Cupcake performed a few years ago. They needed a COVID-19 test and I could not get it in time. She is coming to my state again next month, and I will not be able to go. Story 97. When I was 14, my friend arranged for us to see Rihanna during her anti-tour. I chickened out in the end because my parents were very strict and would not allow me to go despite us having a great backstory. I now regret it deeply. Story 98. I sorely regret not seeing the presidents of the United States of America play when I had the chance. It would have been great live. Story 99. None, my father does not let me go to concerts, and that is fine with me. When I am married, I will go with my husband. Story 100. I had 6 tickets to see Arch Enemy in Vancouver at the Commodore, which is by far my favorite venue. I was going to travel from Victoria and secure hotels, but the night before, I decided I couldn't be bothered. I didn't resell the tickets. Angela left the band after that tour, so I missed my chance to see a bucket list lineup. Story 101. I had a $12 ticket to see Bruce Springsteen in Madison, Wisconsin around 1982 or 83. I was sick and stayed home. Looking back, I don't think I was that sick. Also, the brother of my best friend told us to never go to a Grateful Dead concert because of all the acid and drugs. I wish I had listened to that advice. I have probably missed too many shows to list here. Story 102. None. I do not really understand the point of concerts. I get much better sound quality listening at home on my sound system. Why pay a lot of money to be packed in like a sardine and hear the music at a lower quality? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.